One night, one drink, one dangerous man who would change it. All the neon lights of downtown Chicago blurred through Maya's tears as she clutched her pink slip, the harsh words of her former supervisor still echoing in her ears. Budget cuts, they'd said, as if those two words could erase 3 years of arriving early, staying late, and giving everything to a job that had just discarded her like yesterday's newspaper. Her phone buzzed with another text from her babysitter. "Emma's asking when you're coming home. Should I stay longer?" Maya's heart clenched. Emma, her 7-year-old daughter, had already eaten dinner without her mom again, just like too many nights recently. And now, without her marketing coordinator salary, even the babysitter's modest fee felt like a luxury they couldn't afford. The October wind whipped through her thin blazer as she walked aimlessly down Michigan Avenue, passing couples heading to expensive restaurants she could never afford. She found herself standing outside Noir, one of those upscale bars where a single cocktail cost more than she spent on groceries in a day. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, she could see beautiful people in designer clothes, laughing without a care in the world. "I need a drink," she whispered to herself, knowing she couldn't afford it, but desperate to escape reality for just 1 hour. The hostess barely glanced at Maya's off-the-rack business attire as she found a corner spot at the marble bar. The bartender, a 20-something with perfectly styled hair, looked her up and down with thinly veiled disdain. "What can I get you?" he asked, his tone suggesting she probably couldn't afford to be there. "A vodka tonic," Maya replied, her voice steadier than she felt. "Top shelf or whatever's cheapest." She winced internally as she said it, but her checking account didn't lie. The bartender smirked and turned away, making her drink with obvious reluctance. "Rough night?" The voice came from her right, deep, warm, with a hint of amusement. Maya turned to see a man in his early 30s, dark hair slightly disheveled, wearing a simple black Henley that probably cost more than her monthly electric bill. But his eyes weren't cold like the bartender's. They were kind. Concerned, even. "You could say that," Maya replied, taking a sip of her drink and trying not to flinch at the price she'd just paid for watered-down vodka. "I'm Jake," he said, extending his hand. His grip was firm but gentle, calloused in a way that suggested he wasn't just another trust fund kid playing at being important. "Maya, beautiful name. You know," I couldn't help but notice that bartender's attitude. "Mind if I have a word with him?" Before Maya could protest, Jake had caught the bartender's attention with a subtle gesture. The young man's entire demeanor changed instantly, his face paling as he hurried over. "Mr. Morrison, I'm so sorry I didn't realize you were—" "Make the lady a proper drink," Jake said quietly. "And maybe work on your customer service skills." The bartender nodded frantically and immediately began preparing a new cocktail, this time with premium vodka and fresh lime. Maya watched the exchange with growing curiosity and embarrassment. "You didn't have to do that," she said when Jake turned back to her. "Nobody deserves to be treated that way, especially not someone who's already having a tough night." He studied her face with genuine concern. "Want to talk about it?" Something in his tone, the complete absence of judgment, broke down Maya's defenses. Maybe it was the alcohol on an empty stomach, or the fact that her carefully constructed life had just crumbled, but she found herself telling this stranger everything. About losing her job, about Emma, about the constant struggle to make ends meet as a single mother in one of America's most expensive cities. "Emma's father?" Jake asked gently. "He decided fatherhood wasn't for him when she was 2, Maya said, surprised by how easy it was to talk to this man. "Haven't heard from him since." Jake's jaw tightened. "His loss. Any man who walks away from his child is a fool." There was something in his voice, a depth of understanding that suggested personal experience. Maya found herself relaxing for the first time in months. "What about you?" she asked. "Let me guess. Tech startup founder? Investment banker?" Jake laughed, a genuine sound that made her smile despite everything. "Something like that. Though I prefer to think of myself as someone who solves problems." They talked for 2 hours, the conversation flowing as naturally as if they'd known each other for years. Jake told her about growing up in a small town in Wisconsin, about his complicated relationship with his own father, about the pressure of family expectations, He was charming but not slick, confident but not arrogant. When Maya mentioned she needed to get home to Emma, he insisted on paying the entire bill. "I can cover my own drinks," Maya protested. "I'm sure you can, but let me do this, please." As they stood to leave, Jake hesitated. "I know this might be presumptuous, but I'd love to see you again. Would you maybe like to have dinner this weekend?" Maya's heart raced. When was the last time a man had asked her out? When was the last time she'd wanted to say yes? "I'd like that," she said. "But I should warn you, I come with a 7-year-old who thinks she knows everything." "I look forward to meeting her," Jake said, and Maya believed he meant it. They exchanged numbers outside the bar, and Jake waited until Maya's Uber arrived before getting into his own car, a modest Honda Civic that surprised her. Most men who could casually drop $200 at a bar drove something flashier. Over the weekend, Maya found herself looking forward to Jake's texts with an anticipation that both thrilled and terrified her. He was funny, thoughtful, and genuinely interested in her life. When he suggested dinner at a family restaurant in Lincoln Park, somewhere Emma would be comfortable, Maya's trust in him grew. The dinner was perfect. Jake arrived with a small gift for Emma, a puzzle featuring the Chicago skyline, and won her over completely by actually listening to her detailed explanation of why cats were superior to dogs in every conceivable way. "He's nice, Mommy," Emma whispered during a trip to the bathroom, "and he didn't try to make me order from the kids' menu." Over the following weeks, Jake became a regular part of their lives. He showed up to Emma's school play, helped Maya practice for job interviews, and never once made her feel ashamed about their modest apartment or second-hand furniture. He was patient with Emma's endless questions, firm but kind when she tested boundaries, and always deferred to Maya when it came to parenting decisions. "I've never dated anyone with kids before," he admitted one evening after Emma had gone to bed. "I hope I'm not overstepping." "You're perfect," Maya said, and meant it. "Emma adores you, and so do I." The confession slipped out before she could stop it, but Jake's smile told her it was welcome. "I love you too," he said simply, "both of you." For the first time in years, Maya felt like she could breathe. She'd found a job at a smaller marketing firm. The pay wasn't great, but it was honest work with decent people. Jake never offered to solve her financial problems directly, but he found subtle ways to help. He'd accidentally buy too much groceries and insist Maya take the extras. He'd suggest free activities around the city that Emma would love. When Maya's car broke down, he appeared with a rental car and a recommendation for a trustworthy mechanic who somehow gave her a significant discount. "Do you know everyone in Chicago?" Maya teased one day. "I get around," Jake replied with that mysterious smile she'd grown to love. It wasn't until 3 months into their relationship that Maya's world tilted again. She was having lunch with her friend Rebecca, catching up on life and gushing about Jake, when Rebecca's expression grew strange. "Maya, what did you say his last name was?" "Morrison, Jake Morrison, why?" Rebecca pulled out her phone, fingers flying over the screen. "Jake Morrison, early 30s, dark hair." Her face went pale. "Oh my God, Maya." She turned the phone screen toward Maya, showing a Forbes article titled, "Chicago's Youngest Billionaire, Jake Morrison's Rise from Small-Town Nobody to Tech Titan." Maya stared at the photo, definitely her Jake, but in a tailored suit, standing in front of a massive office building with Morrison Enterprises emblazoned across the top. "This is him?" Rebecca asked. "This is your Jake?" Maya's hands were shaking as she scrolled through the article. Net worth in the billions. CEO of a tech empire that had revolutionized e-commerce. Son of the late industrial magnate Robert Morrison, one of Chicago's most eligible bachelors, regularly featured in society pages. "I have to go," Maya whispered, standing abruptly. "Maya, wait!" But Maya was already heading for the door, her mind racing. Everything made sense now, the casual way Jake had handled the bartender, the mysterious discounts and connections, the fact that he never seemed worried about work or money. He wasn't just successful. He was one of the most powerful men in the city, and he'd been lying to her for months. That evening, Maya paced her small apartment while Emma did homework at the kitchen table. When Jake knocked at the door, She almost didn't answer. "Hey," he said, his smile fading when he saw her expression. "Everything okay?" Maya held up her phone, showing the Forbes article. Jake's face went completely still. "Were you ever going to tell me?" she asked, stepping aside to let him in. Jake ran a hand through his hair, looking suddenly tired. "Maya, I can explain." "Explain what?" "That you've been pretending to be someone else this entire time. That you've been slumming it with the poor single mom for fun. That's not—" Jake's voice was pained. "It's not like that at all." "Then what is it like, Jake? Or should I call you Mr. Morrison?" Emma looked up from her homework, sensing the tension. "Why are you guys fighting?" "We're not fighting, sweetheart," Maya said quickly. "Why don't you go get ready for your bath?" When Emma left the room, Maya turned back to Jake, arms crossed defensively. "I didn't tell you because I wanted you to know me," Jake said quietly. "Not my bank account or my company or what the newspapers say about me, just me." "But it's all you, isn't it? The money, the power, the ability to solve everyone's problems with a phone call, that's who you really are." Jake shook his head. "The money is it's just something I have. It's not who I am. When I'm with you and Emma, when we're eating pizza and watching movies on your couch, that's when I feel most like myself." "Easy to say when you can always go back to your mansion and your army of assistants," Maya shot back. "Do you have any idea what it's like to worry about whether you can afford your daughter's school supplies? To stay up at night wondering if you'll make rent?" "No," Jake admitted. "I don't. But I know what it's like to have everyone around you only care about what you can give them. I know what it's like to never be sure if someone likes you or your wallet." Maya's anger faltered for a moment at the genuine pain in his voice, but she forced herself to stay strong. "So what was this, some kind of experiment? See if the regular people would like you if they didn't know you were rich?" "It wasn't an experiment," Jake said firmly. "It was the most real thing in my life. You and Emma are the most real thing in my life." "I need you to leave," Maya said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I need to think." Jake nodded slowly, his shoulders sagging. "Okay. But Maya, everything I told you about how I feel, that was real, that's still real." After he left, Maya sank onto her couch and let the tears come. Emma emerged from her room in pajamas, climbing into Maya's lap without a word. "Is Jake coming back?" Emma asked. Maya didn't know how to answer. For the next week, Jake gave Maya space, though flowers arrived daily. Simple bouquets from the corner market. Not expensive arrangements from high-end florists. The cards were always brief. "Thinking of you. Miss you both, and I'm sorry." Maya threw herself into work, but her colleagues noticed her distraction. Her new boss, a kind woman named Carol, finally cornered her in the break room. "Want to talk about it?" Carol asked. Maya found herself explaining the situation, and Carol listened without judgment. "Can I ask you something?" Carol said when Maya finished. "When you were with this man, before you knew about his money, were you happy?" "Yes," Maya admitted, "happier than I'd been in years." "And Emma? She adored him. He was like the father she never had." Carol leaned back in her chair. "Maya, I've been around long enough to know that rich men who want to play games with women don't show up to second-grade school plays. They don't spend their Saturday afternoons teaching little girls how to ride bikes in the park. They don't remember that a child is allergic to strawberries and make sure to order her ice cream accordingly." Maya stared at her boss, processing the words. "You said he lied to you," Carol continued. "But did he really? Or did he just not tell you something that doesn't change who he fundamentally is?" That weekend, Emma asked for the 10th time when Jake was coming over. Maya made a decision that terrified her. She called him. "Maya," Jake's voice was hopeful but cautious. "Can we talk, all three of us?" An hour later, Jake sat on Maya's couch. Emma curled up beside him as he read her favorite book. Maya watched them together, seeing clearly what Carol had pointed out. This wasn't a man playing a role. This was a man who genuinely loved her daughter. "Emma, sweetheart, can you go play in your room for a bit? Jake and I need to talk." When they were alone, Maya took a deep breath. "I've been thinking about what you said. About wanting me to know the real you." Jake set down the book, giving her his full attention. "The thing is, I've been in this relationship for months and I fell in love with a lie," Maya said. "Or at least that's what I thought. But then I realized, you never actually lied about anything that mattered. You told me about your childhood, your fears, your dreams. You told me about your complicated relationship with your father. You just left out the part about being ridiculously wealthy." "Maya," she held up a hand, "let me finish. I understand why you did it, and I understand that being rich probably makes dating incredibly complicated. But what hurt wasn't the money, it was feeling like I didn't really know you. Like maybe you were protecting yourself from me." Jake reached for her hands. "I was protecting myself, but not from you. From the change that money always brings to relationships. I've watched it happen over and over. People start seeing dollar signs instead of seeing me." "And I proved your point, didn't I?" Maya said ruefully. "The minute I found out, I immediately assumed the worst about your motivations. You had every right to be angry. I should have told you sooner." Maya studied his face. The same kind eyes, the same gentle smile that had drawn her in that first night at the bar. "Tell me something. That first night when you saw me crying at the bar, if you hadn't been wealthy, if you couldn't have intimidated that bartender or bought me drinks, would you still have tried to help me?" "Of course," Jake said without hesitation. "That's all I needed to know," Maya said, leaning forward to kiss him softly. "I love you, Jake Morrison, billionaire or not." Jake's arms came around her, holding her tight. "I love you too, and Maya. I want to be completely honest about everything from now on. About my work, my money, my family, all of it." "Good," Maya said, pulling back to look at him seriously, "because Emma's going to have questions about why you drive a Honda Civic, if you're supposedly rich." Jake laughed. "I bought that car in college. It still runs perfectly. Why would I replace it? See? That's the man I fell in love with." They were interrupted by Emma barreling into the room. "Are you done talking? Because I want to show Jake my new art project." "We're done talking," Maya said, exchanging a look with Jake that promised much more conversation later. As Emma dragged Jake to see her latest masterpiece, a crayon drawing of the three of them at Navy Pier, Maya felt something she hadn't experienced in years, the quiet confidence that everything was going to be okay. 6 months later, Maya stood in the bathroom of Jake's downtown penthouse, staring at the positive pregnancy test in her hands. After the initial shock, a slow smile spread across her face. She and Jake had been married for 2 months now, in a small ceremony in Lincoln Park, with just their closest friends and family. Emma had been the flower girl, proudly declaring to anyone who would listen that she was getting the best stepdad in the world. They'd had many conversations about money and their future. Jake had insisted on a prenup, not to protect his assets from Maya, but to ensure that she and Emma would always be taken care of, regardless of what happened to him or his company. Maya had initially resisted, but Jake's lawyer had explained that it was actually more generous than any settlement she could win in a divorce court. "I want you to feel secure," Jake had said. "I never want you to worry about money again." Maya had agreed with one condition: she would continue working. Her career was important to her, and she'd found her place at the marketing firm. Jake had been completely supportive, even offering to fund her dream of starting her own consultancy when she was ready. Now, standing in their marble bathroom, a far cry from her tiny apartment, Maya felt a familiar flutter of anxiety. How would Jake react to the news? They'd talked about wanting more children someday, but someday had arrived rather quickly. "Maya, you okay in there?" Jake's voice came through the door. She opened it, holding up the test. Jake's eyes went wide, then filled with tears. "Really?" he whispered. "Really?" He swept her into his arms, spinning her around the spacious bathroom as she laughed. "Emma's going to be so excited," he said, setting her down gently. "She's been asking about a baby brother or sister." "You're happy?" Maya asked, needing to hear it. "I'm ecstatic," Jake said, kissing her forehead. "I love our family, Maya. I love the life we've built together." That evening, they told Emma over dinner at their favorite pizza place, the same chain restaurant where Jake had first met Emma months ago. Money hadn't changed their traditions. If anything, Jake was even more protective of the simple pleasures that had brought them together. Emma shrieked with joy at the news, immediately launching into detailed plans for teaching the baby everything she knew about cats, dinosaurs, and the proper way to eat ice cream. Later that night, as they lay in bed, Maya reflected on the journey that had brought them here. That night at Noir felt like a lifetime ago, when she'd been a desperate single mother, crying into an overpriced cocktail. Now she was a wife, soon to be mother of two with a husband who loved her unconditionally. "Penny for your thoughts, Jake murmured, pulling her closer. "Just thinking about that first night we met. If someone had told me then that I'd end up here, married to a billionaire, I'd have thought they were crazy." Jake chuckled. "If someone had told me I'd find the love of my life crying at a bar, I'd have said the same thing. Do you ever regret it? Not telling me about the money from the beginning?" Jake was quiet for a moment. "No," he said finally. "Because it gave us the chance to build something real first. Everything that came after was just bonus." Maya smiled in the darkness. "Even the part where I accused you of slumming it with poor people? Even that? For though I have to say your righteous anger was pretty attractive." She laughed, swatting at his chest. "Flattery will get you everywhere, Mr. Morrison. Good to know, Mrs. Morrison." As Maya drifted off to sleep in her husband's arms, she thought about the strange turns life could take. One night, one drink, one conversation with a dangerous man. Dangerous not because he was cruel or criminal, but because he had the power to completely transform her world. And he had, in the best possible way. Outside their floor-to-ceiling windows, Chicago sparkled in the distance, full of possibility and promise. Maya had learned that sometimes the most frightening risks led to the greatest rewards. Sometimes the thing that seemed too good to be true was simply good enough to be real. And sometimes, when you least expected it, love found you in the most unlikely places, even in an overpriced bar on the worst night of your life, when a kind stranger offered to buy you a drink and ended up offering you everything.